for the first session, I would like to invite up Åsa Sjöberg, Director of Programs TV4, Jonathan Marlow, Co-founder and Chief Content Officer of Fandor, and Jakob Bjur, Senior Lecturer and Research Fellow at Göteborgs University. Welcome.
Hey.
See if we switch that on. There we are. You get to share those. I'll just switch that on for you. So, oops. There we are. And there's the other one. Oops. I should mention we've been very focused on film now, but in this report you can read quite a lot about the future of linear television and also a fair deal about the whole digital disruption, everything that's happening on YouTube and so on. We haven't not noticed that there is massive disruption there as well, and that's why I'm very happy also especially to have you here to speak. I should mention also, if there are international guests, that TV4 is a Swedish commercial broadcaster. I'm going to ask by starting by asking you to start by outlining briefly what you do and what changes in audience behaviors are most relevant to your work today. And I think also we should start with you.
Okay. I'm the Director of Program at TV4, which is one of the biggest commercial broadcaster in Sweden still. I work with broad variation of genres. I'm responsible for everything between feature, factual, big entertainment shows, all the way to scripted, which is film and drama series and comedies and everything like that. So what I'm not into news, sports, and I'm not responsible for acquisitions. So otherwise it's a broad variation of content. And a team, of course, working with that. Well, the challenges, it's been well presented in your report and well presented also from the stage this morning. And there's so many things that you can dive into, I think. So it's hard to choose one issue that is the most important. But what's really relevant for us as a commercial broadcaster and all broadcasters is that the audience does not stay if it's not relevant. Because there's so much out there. I think there's 400 broadcast channels available in Sweden still, and on top of that, the broad everything on the internet. Of course, you can find everything out there. And you mentioned piracy. Of course, everything is available at all times. So I'm actually amazed that so many people still watch broadcasted television. They still watch, for instance, the Lasse Åberg films during the Christmas. We had great audiences on that. So people tend to seek things that they know and can relate to, I think.
Do you feel that your audience has changed? Is there a general feel in the corridors at TV4 that you're working in a very different market now, or is it that the way linear will continue is very similar to what it's been?
Well, of course, we see that there's so many opportunities for the audience. There's so much services out there, and of course, we try to provide services as well to the audience. It's like we feel that we need to provide everything that is on our broadcasted channels, also on the internet, on our play services. And I think we are moving forward on that. We haven't been perfect. We don't have everything that we are broadcasting linear on our play services, but I think we need to provide that fastly, because that's a service that everyone expects today. If you missed out on your show, you want to see it some other time. And what is fascinating is that still, I think, the big channels is sort of setting the agenda for what you want to watch on your time-shifted devices. That goes for cinema too. I mean, the big hits everyone wants to see. That's the thing they try to find on the internet. And the difficulty going forward, of course, is for the more niched content to find its audience. Because in this sea of everything, how are you going to find the right stuff, and how are you going to choose? The variation is so big.
Yeah. Jonathan, what about, let's start with what is Fandor?
Well, first I'd like to thank, as everyone else has, Johanna for asking me to talk here. I love being in Sweden, so coming back is always a wonderful thing. And the short version is that it's a curated subscription VOD service. I had the fortune or misfortune, depending on your point of view, of being a very early employee of Amazon while I was at university. I started in the mid-90s, one of the first 200 people there. And when I left, there were 8,000, and now there's 80,000. And even at that time, it was clear that being about everything has its disadvantages. So later on, I did all of acquisitions for a company called Voodoo, and left when they were being bought by Walmart, which is kind of a similar situation, this focus on things that I don't particularly find to be of interest. So there seemed to be an opportunity. So I guess I'm an opportunist. There was an opportunity to focus on film, as the rest of the players in my space, at least for a service that's based with US and Canadian audiences at the moment, on things that are duration agnostic but not episodic, because
Can
everyone
you
else
just
is moving
clarify
into
that a little bit? Duration agnostic but not episodic. What is that?
Well, we basically license films from 1895 to the present that are from 1 minute to 12 hours. So we have one film that's 12 hours.
But
in
they're not
duration.
episodic, that is, they're not series. Yeah.
They're not a series. It's a self-contained program. So with that, I mean, it's not clear to me that we will consistently only be focused on standalone film, but for the moment, that it's in a way the same as you were talking about. It's almost easier to talk about what we aren't than what we are. I mean, when people ask me what we have, generally I say, well, we have anything that is good, and good is anything people want to watch.
I went in on Fandor.com and looked at what was being promoted on the front page, and a lot of it, some was like, oh, here's this really interesting documentary from Bulgaria right now, and here's this, and then, oh, here's this Italian Western action from the 70s that is referenced in this Tarantino movie, but if you haven't seen the original, here it is. And there were like 5 things on the front page where I went, oh yeah. And it's very close to the experience of going to like the really good niche DVD store that we don't have anymore, basically.
Unfortunately, that's true, yeah. I mean, that's why it exists.
So
let's give that experience of the, rather than the experience you get in most services, which are detached from humanity. There's an idea that there's someone there who's trying to create some kind of context around the films that are there. And for the Italian films, for instance, we licensed those from a distributor who hadn't released them in the US, and then we had them subtitled ourselves. So our dedication to that, finding these films that we think are important is somewhat ceaseless.
How do you share revenue?
We give half of all of our money to our partners.
That would
It's
be
very complicated.
the filmmakers or the distributors, depending
on who we're working with, yeah.
Yeah.
In many cases now, we work directly with the filmmakers. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. The problem is that so much of what you've created here, we could talk about it for an entire hour and not cover it in any entirety. And I feel like for the last 2 decades, I'm this individual who is returning back from the future to the present to tell people how we're all going to spend the rest of our lives. The only problem is that, like you talk about this morning, how much you liked what you saw there, and I can only look at it in terms of what's about to happen. I can't even think about it in the present.
But Fandor is one of the reasons you're here is that Fandor is always mentioned as one of these specialized VOD services that really works financially as well. So what is your analysis of the audience's needs?
Well, in our case, it's a subscription service, and one of my problems with what you've done here is that it attempts to group all of video on demand as to one thing, and it doesn't really take into consideration like this overemphasis on the demise of DVD or the lack of traction with Blu-ray. It's just a symptomatic issue of physical media in the home video space, home video as an alternative to going out and seeing movies in a cinema, which would what I would personally prefer, but I don't always have that opportunity. So, and a lot of people don't. So the idea then is that transactional VOD, ad-supported video on demand, subscription video on demand are all very different, and they're all this new version of what physical media had been. The biggest problem is if we go back to the 70s with beta and VHS, that was about 5 times the retail price of what DVD was, and then DVD is roughly 10 times what VOD is. So obviously, you know, whatever comes after VOD is going to be whatever diminishing returns that already
But
are
they'll pay you
already
to watch it, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll start paying people to watch. No, I mean, obviously that's not sound. So when we founded Fandor, it was critical that people needed to get paid, because what I was really frustrated of happening is that every other company in the space was saying, "Oh, isn't it wonderful that your film can be seen now? Money will just find its own way to you in some other means," and that's illogical. Which is why so many of the other businesses have disappeared.
Yeah. Let's move on to Jakob for a while there. Jakob, you're an audience researcher. What does that mean today?
Yeah, it means that we have the same problem as you guys. Yeah, to follow consumers today is quite complicated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sitting on several shares also. I'm doing research, but I also work in the research and measurement industry, and we're trying to create like currencies for television. A currency for television in 2016 in Sweden. Shit. Yeah. No, but it's yeah.
So, if if you would be asked in an elevator what's happening with the audiences right now, would you have a short answer for that?
The elevator and the researcher. No, but it's like, yeah, the short answer is historically the audience has gone from a mass audience, everybody's doing the same, then to an individualized audience, spread onto niche channels, and now today we have a networked and individualized audience. And it's very interesting to know how this audience is going to navigate, what they are going to do. And it's also the birth of a new type of television moving images audiences that is like a hybrid viewer that is going to combine different types of visual content from different platforms on different devices, depending on. So it's more like situation dependent. Yeah. But still, and that is, we have a lot of slowness in this move. It's going slow. Everybody says television is going to die, linear television is going to die, but we have media habits that are very slow moving, so things are happening. And the most interesting thing that is happening is the expectations that are changing, because we are doing things elsewhere and we turn back to broadcast with other expectations. We turn to cinema with transformed expectations.
That's right. Åsa Sjöberg.
I'm just jumping on my chair. I think in one way, I think everything that the techniques that is happening is absolutely fantastic for everyone. Of course, it's brilliant that everything can be found out there and that you can dig into niches and find films that you just wouldn't expect to find. But you were discussing and talking about the financing systems, and this is in a way the problem, I think, because if we are all divided into little niche groups everywhere, how are we going to fund the projects, the films, the big drama series that we all want to watch and that we love so much? If the windows and the buyers are just too small to really get enough money together to, and I think that the protection of the window system is not, it's easy to just keep whipping on that, but of course it's people protecting their investments, their risks, that they've invested a lot of money and they hope to get it back. And if we can't get the money back, the risk investors won't invest anymore. Yeah. So we really need to find a wise way of going forward here so that we won't undermine great quality productions going forward.
Yeah. Well, I feel that there's an irrational fear that takes place as it relates to what happens with digital delivery and what happens with theatrical delivery. And I think as it will come up, as it's in the document and as it will come up again later, that audiences that want to watch things at the moment or whenever they want to watch them, and audiences that want to go out and have an experience outside of the home are not necessarily the same. In fact, they're quite different. And they will actually do both. So I think that the sandbagging of the windows is really, usually it's detrimental to individual producers, but it's something, in fact, this is an opportunity in relation to how the larger companies will insist on sandbagging the windows, that we can, or most of us in the room, have an opportunity to pervert that system. I never actually answered your question, though, and I should say, as far as audience behavior, the reason I was picking on the ad-supported, which generates very little money, the transactional version, which generates considerably more money, and subscription version, is that there are very different films that do very well on each of those, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer to it. In our case, because it's subscription is by design because there are films that generally people are not readily familiar with, so it allows them an opportunity to watch things they would otherwise be reluctant to pay for.
So like the weirder the film, the lower the threshold if it's on subscription, and the higher if it's transactional.
With subscription, what you're doing is you're trying to detach the money that the audience is paying from what they're viewing, because as soon as if you move into transactional, they want to experience value from the experience. They're much more conservative about what they want to watch, because they want to know that if they're spending money specifically for something, that they're going to have a good experience.
Yeah, this
So
is really
subscription
interesting. This is
perverts
the reverse of what we just heard about. So the big Hollywood films are 70%. Like you have to make a huge investment of time and money,
Right,
and
yes.
physically going somewhere. So you're likeliest to do that if you already know the IP very well. That's right. Bengt, would you like to come in?
Yes.
Yeah, two things. I think that the unwillingness to even discuss what we're going to do is part of that. It's so complicated that we all say different things, and by banging at the support systems like I did, it's just to say that we can't do without the public support systems in Europe, but they are not at all looking into what kind of format or what kind of product the consumer wants to have. And you're absolutely right. I think that traditional TV series or new TV series, or even what Netflix will ask for, must also be a part of the public support system. Otherwise, we don't have an industry.
Can we talk a little bit about those expectations? I have a feel that one new expectation that has emerged, and this is, I think, and this is connected to piracy actually, is that people seem to feel, I mean, a lot of people don't feel that it's immoral to download. They don't think it's stealing. They think that that they have a human right to consume any kind of artwork. Once it exists, they have the right to see it. And if they are not allowed to pay for it, a lot of consumers seem to feel that if this content is not distributed to them legally, the distributors are actually stealing from them. And then that makes it morally okay to download it, because they are not allowed to pay for it. And this is a part of it. I mean, part of piracy is also just being very cheap, you know, and immoral. But I think part of that is this. Do you agree that there's some kind of weird change where people think they have the right to all content always? Jakob?
No, but I think that, piracy is not my main field, you can say. But in general, of course, consumers have the right to consume whatever they like, and it's your work to make things available and give them possibilities to do that. And if consumers go to the internet and they can find anything, and they go to consume music in the way they want, with an access-based subscription model that goes very nicely, or they can consume books in that way, why the fuck can't they consume? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. But so it's really. Can you say, like,
people know that they can't go into a store and just grab something because they want it, because it's there.
No, but,
so of course
they feel that they can grab it because it's not there. So we can't compare it to the.
Yeah,
no, in a way, but I think we need. I think we have to evolve when it comes to the moral on the internet. I think it's like the internet is sort of like the Wild West when we sat up on a horse and ran, and if I was first there, I could put up a sign and say, "This is my land." In a way, it's like that, and I think we have to sort of evolve around that, because of course it's insane that people invest a lot of money in great product, and then you just take it, especially, and I'm not saying that we should blame the consumers. Firstly, we also have to look into the people that are providing these services, because I don't think that it's really the downloading.
I'm sorry.
Just let me say that it's not the downloading, I think, is the thing right now, it's the streaming.
Yes.
Because the streaming services are really exploding.
I need to say something here, and that is we're not going to have a conversation today about piracy, because we all agree on piracy. So let's, but I only
let me just say
only
something that is
mentioned it-
relevant,
yes,
and that is that
absolutely.
it's beginning to be mainstream, because I think beforehand it was young people, technically advanced people, they know how to operate these things. But today it's old ladies like me that actually begin to understand that streaming is great and Swefilmer is great. So this is now becoming a mainstream thing.
Yes.
And we don't know how that will affect the business.
Exactly. So, but let's try and keep piracy in the context of behaviors,
No,
basically.
I
Jonathan,
get
and then
that.
Bengt.
I mean, I think that what's fundamental is really dealing with the reasons behind why this even happens in the first place, and piracy fills a vacuum. If there is a convenient way for folks to see the films they want to see, they will choose convenience. And so I thought what you were saying earlier is very astute, that there's this period when the film is not available to be seen legally, that people seek it out illegally. I think that a lot of the issues around piracy is overstated because those people weren't going to pay for it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's really I'm not denying that it's a problem. I mean, in the U.S., YouTube and actually everywhere is a primary vehicle for piracy, and it's frustrating that for the last 2 decades I've spent my life convincing people to do things they don't want to do, and part of that, part of the vehicle for convincing people to make their films available has been their frustration and how often their films are bootlegged on readily accessible platforms like YouTube, and they actually just want to be able to make money off their work and not have it be stolen.
Okay, Bengt is going to say something just now, but I just want to put in, I hear a lot of whispering in the room. Some people are leaving because they want to go somewhere else, but a lot of you are now incredibly upset and in protest. And I'm going to let you ask questions in a little while, so start mentally preparing for that. And those questions are not going to be statements about piracy. I'm pretty we just don't have the time for that today. That is another conversation. But if you have an actual question or observation that is not a statement about piracy, you're going to have 1 minute and no more to ask them in just a little while. Bengt.
Okay, maybe I now raise another issue.
Go.
But I just want to ask you also about the broadcasters. When you are looking ahead, is it possible that you would be a vehicle for products that you have not produced yourself, not even taking part in? I mean, partnering up with Netflix, for example, or HBO in a different way from now on. So you are actually profiting yourself from something that should today be out there on the internet, for example.
Of course, I mean, we've been successful, and it's been part of our business to actually acquire other people's content.
Yeah, but more curating for your own audience.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that we in the future, we are so open for co-production. And that's been very important for the commercial channels always, and for TV4 especially, because there's no support and funding for TV drama production at commercial stations. We now have a little development fund with the film avtal, which is really great. That's the first step. So I definitely think that going forward, we still need to partner up with maybe Netflix or HBO Nordic or something like that to produce.
I would like, very briefly, before we let the audience in, just to say if there's anything in the report that you absolutely disagree with or absolutely agree with, and let's take a short round and let it be like a minute each. Jakob, you go first.
Oh, shit. No, that's not fair. No, but it's so broad. There are many things that I agree a lot about. It's very interesting, and I see special interests of the author in it. It's very good. You can... No, but it's an accurate account, and it's always difficult when you bring out figures because there are many figures around. But one thing that I would like to press on, it's like that we have an inertia in how media habits are changing, and they are changing slower than we normally believe. So if you see somebody saying that it's going very fast, they want it to go very fast.
Yeah. Jonathan, you already mentioned that you feel that there's an overemphasis on the DVD thing. That section is there because that's the one thing everybody agreed on.
Sure.
What should we move on to next then? Or what else?
Well, I think that for the most part, it's very astute. There are things, I read many of these, and they're mostly tedious and academic. This is really looked at what's happening in the world today and where it will be going, and did it in a very astute way. It's a draft, so obviously it's a living document, and it will change. As it relates to another question that you had asked, that you would be asking, and it is baked into the document somewhat, is this change of viewership behaviors as it relates to what they are watching and how to redefine what they are watching. And I'm not necessarily a believer in redefining what things are by how they're viewed. In fact, what frustrates me is when I travel around and speak about new distribution. I mean, I've been doing new distribution for a long time, so it's just distribution. It's a type of distribution.
Yeah.
Or semantics, I mean, circulation, however you want to call it. So what I will say, though, is that what is happening and what is fundamental that you also touch on is the fact that players like my company and others are getting involved in production. And as of yesterday, we had a new CEO start, Ted Hope, who's one of the best, or had been one of the best producers in the U.S. for the types of films that we all love, and had decided to take a break from producing and work with us to where we will actually be producing work. So that's where it becomes very interesting, what we're doing, what Amazon Studios is doing, what Hulu is doing with original programming, what Netflix is also doing. That's very disruptive, and it's disruptive in a good way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
I agree with many things there. I think it's mentioned in the report that there will be even more international players on Swedish ground, and I think for a national channel like TV4, it'll be more and more important with locally produced content for the benefit of many producers. I really think that will be more and more important for us to go local, and not only live and sports events and stuff like that, but really also great drama series produced locally. And then I also have to oppose that we will not do news in like 3 to 5 years. I really think that we will struggle hard to keep on our news services at TV4. That's fundamental, and even a democratic issue, actually.
Now, I know you really want negativity here, and I know you wanted this to be a fireside chat, but I'm going to say something good about your report. I know.
Okay.
I know you clearly
But
can't
if you say
tolerate
really
it, but
briefly, because
but
we have to let the audience.
It's really brief. That for the last 5 years, we've been talking about the death of DVD, and it's still not dead yet. But try as we might, we're killing it. And not me personally. I love DVDs. I still buy them, but and Blu-ray for that matter. But the thing that was nice about the report is that it specifically says there will be a specialty market for DVD, and there will. Yeah. No one else ever says that.
And
that's
nice.
Actually, there's a thriving business in specialty DVD, as which Criterion or Factory 25 are these companies that do packages, much in the same way that cinematic events are thriving.
Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to let 3 people from the audience
I'll get off my
speak
soapbox.
for 1 minute each. Who'd like to go?
3 people, 1 minute.
That's 3
No
minutes.
pressure.
No pressure. Who would like to say something? You don't have any opinions at all? You're just going to keep whispering at your neighbors?
It's much easier
I can't
to
see you,
grumble.
so please shut up.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, questions.
Go.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'll just do you link to other. Oh, that's interesting. I'm just repeating the question for the
sure,
room.
go
Do you
ahead.
link to other content providers on the internet for context, such as YouTube or Wikipedia or so on?
I'm glad you said context. Context is imperative, particularly for films that most people are not as familiar with as other films. So we actually commission work, essays, interviews, what have you, with the makers, the producers, the distributors, to discuss why they do what they do, and provide some framework around pretty much all of the films on the library. There are 5,000 now. So every day there's at least one new piece published to Keyframe. Plus we have David Hudson, who's based in Berlin, who writes about festival work and well, actually he writes about everything.
I see a question or comment over there. Please stand up and state who you are, because we can't see. Hi. How can we as the funders, do you mean? Or the industry? Mm? Yeah. How do we support the rebellion? Bengt?
I mean,
Yeah.
you can't actually support a rebellion, but what I'm thinking is that today is the producer is always alone. This is a business that's not transparent at all, for example. So you don't know what the others are doing. You work with your own product and you take your own risks, and you are the one that has to fight with them here and there. So you're totally alone. It's not a good position if you want to do terrible things like go in opposition against exhibitors or big distributors or whatever. So if many producers, could work together, that could be a start of a sort of a rebellion. But I'm not sure the rule breaker will come from the producers. Maybe they will come from somewhere else. But I think someone needs to do something very strange and odd.
Yes. Everybody has to do that their own little revolution. I think we're running out of time here. I would like to add, since this panel was meant to be about audiences, but it's very interesting that you can't even try to talk about anything except landing in the windows always, that perhaps the audiences can make a revolution. We can help the audience take the revolution somewhere else than on Svefilm.
The consumers has already said they have a statement, really. So
let them give you their money, I guess, is where we ended up right now. Thank you so much for this. The panelists will be around, so we can also catch them later. Thank you. Bengt sitter kvar. Åsa, Jonathan, and Jakob, thank you so much.